Thanks, Tony. 6:32. New York's legislative session was scheduled to close on Wednesday, but Senate members were still in the chamber late last night.
And with several issues still up in the air, lawmakers decided to extend the session. The Assembly was still at work into the early hours of the morning. The Senate is recalling a bill that would allow automatic voter registration at a variety of government agencies. The measure was passed yesterday, but lawmakers say a significant technical issue would have impacted the intent of the legislation. A correction will be made, and Senate Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins says the updated bill will be passed at the next available opportunity. The AVR Act would not go into effect until 2021.
Following Senate passage earlier this week, the Assembly has passed pay equity legislation. The passage of bills expands the basis for prohibited discrimination and requires employers to ensure equal pay for similar work. It also bans employers from asking prospective employees for wage and salary history as a requirement for a job, interview, application, offer, or promotion, and prohibits retaliation for refusal to provide such information.
A bill to ensure pregnant women receive information critical to their health and the health of their child has passed. The legislation would expand the availability of educational materials on possible complications during pregnancy that could endanger the newborn or the mother. The measure is aimed at ensuring expectant mothers have access to the appropriate screenings, as well as referrals to healthcare professionals who specialize in maternal and newborn care.
With Assembly passage and support from the governor, New York is expanding its minority and women-owned business enterprise program. Governor Cuomo says the MWBE program is a proud legacy of his father's. The goal of the expansion is to increase participation, decrease the effects of discrimination, assist in the capacity building, and bring about changes to the program that are informed by disparity studies.
After more than 8 years of the bill passing in the Senate but not the Assembly, Aaron's Law has officially been approved. The measure had been stalled in the Assembly Education Committee, but after that closed for the session late last week, the Assembly Speaker moved to reopen the committee, allowing the bill to be passed onto the floor for a vote. Aaron's Law, which has been passed in 36 other states, promotes sexual abuse prevention education in schools.
And a proposal to legalize and regulate paid surrogacy in New York appears dead for the year in the legislature. The measure passed in the Senate earlier this week, but Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie says many Assembly members have concerns about protecting the rights of paid surrogates and the commercialization of the practice. Advocates say they'll try again next year.
Though the legislative session was extended, lawmakers left HALT legislation off the agenda. The measure would restrict solitary confinement in prisons and jails. Governor Cuomo, Senate Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins, and Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie released a joint statement expressing their disappointment that the bill could not be passed this year. But they said they'd reached an agreement to dramatically reduce the use of solitary confinement in correctional facilities.
New York will soon have the nation's most aggressive and ambitious target for reducing carbon emissions. The Assembly approved new targets yesterday following Senate passage the day before. Under the measure, the state will aim to generate 100% of its energy from renewable sources by 2040 and cut greenhouse gases by 85% under 1990 levels by 2050. Governor Cuomo says he's going to sign it into law.
And lawmakers are considering a proposal to eliminate criminal penalties for public possession and use of marijuana. Efforts to legalize pot before the end of the session failed, but the Senate passed a bill to decriminalize marijuana yesterday. The new measure removes criminal penalties for possession of marijuana under 2 ounces, reduces the penalty fine regardless of criminal history for possession, and establishes procedures for automatic record expungement, both retroactively and for future convictions. Lawmakers have struggled to agree on key details such as how tax revenue would be used and how local communities would decide whether they want to host dispensaries.
And legislation to ensure limousine safety and protect New Yorkers while riding in limousines has passed. This comes following the Schoharie limo crash back in October that tragically killed 20 people. It was the worst transportation disaster in nearly a decade. The Assembly passed a measure that would require stretch limousines to use commercial GPS technology to ensure that drivers are using routes that take into account minimum clearance, weight restriction, and the turning radius of the vehicles. A proposal that would require all stretch limousines registered or sold in the state after January 1st, 2020 to have seatbelts for all seating positions.